The sounds of Weird Al Yankovic, Angry White Boy Polka. Here on WoW Radio, this is Blue Please with myself, Total Biscuit. You just heard the sounds of Nubcake News. If you missed any of this show, and woe betide that you did, because my heart will fall out and perhaps wither and die on the floor, and I may go and write poetry and knit cardigans. Unlikely, but it could happen. Then you can listen to the archive. Oh yes, the archives. Go to the archives, wcradio.com, go to the downloads page. All of our shows are there, every single last one of them. Days, weeks of things to listen to. It's insane. Now, while we have something of a peak listenership, let me let you know about certain things that are happening. On the 25th of March, that is next week, directly after Blue Please, I will be interviewing Nihilum. Oh yes, the mighty Uber Guild that is what many would consider the #1 guild in the world. Although Death and Taxes might have something to agree with that, and if Death and Taxes would like an interview, just let me know, themurloc@gmail.com, of course. So yeah, you'll be able to tune in to the Nihilum interview, and it shall be most epic. You can submit your questions on wcradio.com on the forums. Just register yourself up for that one. And just a quick reminder, since we've got loads of listeners, money. Give us lots of money. WoW Radio currently survives on donations. Yes, we do. We run everything on donations, and it's most awesome, and we love you for it. So if you have any spare change knocking around in your PayPal account, click the donate button. Oh yeah. So now that I've frustrated myself out in a overly commercial style fashion, it's time to get on to our last topic for the day, which is
Second Wind.
For next week. At least it will be after I've read out a couple of these emails. Got some very interesting emails as it happens. Now, here's a few emails. Oh, good lord, that's long. I'm going to avoid that one. Let's do something that's not so long. Right, here's one from... let's see. Hysterica. Right. Hardcore raiders are the small minority of WoW, and even though the CMs may care about keeping them happy, the bean counters are Vivendi. And they run things, and to be quite honest, they do not care if you can Mortal Strike for 20,000. You'll notice the Fireman instances and heroics are almost flawless. This is for a reason. Keep the masses playing for as long as possible. The large majority of WoW players have not heard of D&T, etc., and are not interested, more than seeing the occasional shiny items. Lady Vash equals Rathe Council. Any long-term MMO raider will understand this instantly. Yeah, I mean, I can see that point. But I would disagree with the fact that most people don't know who D&T are. There are two kinds of players, yeah? There are those within the community and those who are not in the community. Now, those within the community, of course, are the numbers, yeah? They're the numbers, which means that, of course, the money comes raking in every month. But the people that are part of the community, in my opinion, are what makes WoW worth playing. WoW is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's kept going by its community. Communities exist everywhere, within guilds, within servers, within forums, everywhere. Within WoW Radio itself has its own community. Communities are a very important element to MMOs, and if they do not persist, then horrible things will happen. Horrible. So yeah, while I agree with the small minority, you've got to bear in mind that you do need to keep that small minority happy because they are looked up to. Now, here's one for you. This is an interesting one. Heath comes up with this. Heath's been giving some very good emails over the past couple of weeks. I like Heath. And he says this. Under the BlizzCon section in the Burning Crusade Collector's Edition DVD, which I sadly have not had the chance to watch yet, and the Radiant Development interview, Blizzard crew joke of the dev team not being able to raid at the same level of real guilds because they don't have the same drive as players for guild and such. And I quote, "People underestimate the drive of loot in the success of your raid, and they talk about how much they wipe and fail at working on the encounters that they themselves created. But then on the other hand, this got me thinking. They also say, a lot of us, however, are in very high-end guilds. Is there a reason for it? Let's face it. 2 guilds being so far ahead. Would it be that wrong to ponder that perhaps D&T could have unmarked Blizzard workers in their ranks? Let's face it, if you made the game, you could quite easily be the best in it as a player. And by being one of the best, you could assess, you could basically do an assessment as regards to betering the content." Who were the Blizzard workers working overtime over the weekend to respawn Kel'Thuzad? Were they actually D&T members? Conspiracy, but honestly, who wouldn't do it? Yeah, I mean, I think that's overreaching somewhat. Yeah, it might happen, but that's certainly overreaching. It's a little bit paranoid. I can understand. But it does seem to me, again, lack of internal testing is a big killer. And it is funny that the drive for loot. Okay, the drive for loot. Well, what about the ability to know exactly what a boss is going to do at any given time because you wrote the damn encounter? Surely that would make it a little bit easier. Anyway, we continue. This is one Vorkada, also known as Wolforce. Hey, TV. If you think about it in a logical sense, Blizzard don't like players progressing faster than intended. If your guild flies through Molten Core, something is wrong. But much is the same for the other side. If your guild hits a wall of a boss, something is wrong. Nothing should be unbeatable. Karazhan needs attunement, people did it. Molten Core was hard, but people did it. The challenges are there to be knocked down. I see Blizzard more than willing to outright stop progression so that the world first mentality people... sorry, I don't really understand what this actually says. Yeah, they see a problem, basically. If a no-name guild beats, say, Kael'thas before the big names, that's an issue. They know it will cause anger, but Blizzard haven't exactly cared about angering players for the sake of balance. So, what she's basically trying to say there is, I think, I'm sorry, I'm sort of very delusional for lack of water, and I'm probably going to collapse very, very soon. What she's basically trying to say is that Blizzard don't really care as to whether the big names get the world first or some random group, and they're more than willing, apparently, to put a block in the way, and then suddenly hotfix it. And then, woo, who gets there? And basically what he's saying there is, Blizzard simply want the world to be fair, and it's forcing others to suffer in the way of it. An interesting way of looking at things, personally not a opinion that I would share. But it's certainly interesting. That's what it's about that. Now, I've got my second win topic for the end of the show.
Second win!
And oddly enough, I've already got an email in about it before I even gave it, which is very, very scary. I am frightened, very much so, by this. So, the second win topic for this week. If you had to design a World of Warcraft beating game, how would you do it? This should get you guys thinking. Always get some interesting responses to that. How would you do it? How do you beat WoW? We already discussed in the previous section the comparison between another relatively popular MMO, EVE Online, and World of Warcraft. How, bearing in mind the reason why EVE Online is never going to beat World of Warcraft, because it appeals to completely the wrong market, how can you beat WoW? How can you beat it? How can you be as successful? Now, oddly enough, I've already had a response to this. This is rather scary. So, Jamie Sperry, please put the far-seeing away for 1 second. Right, and he says this. Here's something to get you guys started on this one. And, of course, you will have until next week to email in your responses to Second Wind. Just topic them Second Wind and send them to themurloc@gmail.com. I fear my voice is going. Oh, dear. I might have to change the synthesizer later on. Yes, right. Yes, the bear is angry, folks. Right, here we go. Alright, this, whilst listening to you, so points may be repeated. This is something I have been thinking about for a while. The three main games in WoW are leveling, endgame PvE, and PvP, and of course more minor element in the metagame of RP. All of these things are covered in most MMOs. What WoW did is to take all the good points of all MMOs out and put them into one game. WoW has a good leveling system. It's not hard to level, and if you die, you don't lose anything. Only a bit of money on armor repairs and, of course, time. WoW also has a good endgame PvE. And that's being demonstrated right now. It has relatively good PvP as well. However, it's not as good as it could be. The RP can't be controlled so much by Blizzard, but they don't cater a huge amount to it anyway. What's to stop another game from coming along and copying WoW and improving upon it? To do this, a game dev would have to take the endgame PvE and the leveling system and maybe add some more content for both. Maybe leveling a bit more. Some more leveling. I wouldn't so much agree with that, but, let's roll with this. After this, you should take the PvP and improve upon it greatly. Maybe you should do RP and improve what Blizzard's done. This would not necessarily be needed. After this, you'd want to add something else to the game. Take a minor example, player housing. If they did it properly, they could have a system that would let you show off your house. And adding trophies to show off your achievements, all this kind of good stuff. Or as a bigger example, you could take crafting. Making crafting as big as the other games within WoW would make another thing to work for. Of course, this doesn't just have to be weapons, it could be things for your house, and all this other kind of stuff. Crafting is a kind of endless thing that you could go in for. Now, these are things I think Blizzard should do to make the game better, and maybe unbeatable. Yeah, I can see the elements there. You've got to look at another game that tried this and failed. At least, maybe I'm being a little bit preemptive in saying that it failed, but for the love of God, I cannot see Vanguard beating WoW anytime soon. It's just not going to happen. Why is it not going to happen? It's not going to happen because, it's aimed at a hardcore market. It's all these games trying to compete for exactly the same market and missing the point of what WoW's got over there. People that play WoW you know, your businessmen, your people who are working 40 hours a week, all these other people who play WoW are not going to go and play Vanguard. The hardcore might go and play Vanguard, but they'll take one look at Vanguard, see an overly complex, difficult, hardcore MMO, and they'll say, no, it's too difficult. Yeah, there's all this awesome stuff in it, but it's too difficult. It looks like ass. It's too hard to level. I'm not going to bother. And this is what people are missing. This is what MMO developers are really missing in this. Now, just to get you thinking, here's what I would do if I was going to construct a WoW beta. First, you need an established world that is attractive. You can't just come up with a random world, because WoW didn't. WoW was based on a series of games that already worked. This is why I think Warhammer Online has the potential to win out, because that has a very strong background lore, and it's already got a fan base. You can't just build something from the ground up and expect it to attract millions of people. That's not how it works. You know, in gaming, you very, very rarely get runaway successes like that. It's like saying, you know, Final Fantasy XII. The Final Fantasy games are always successful. Command & Conquer is always successful. You know, even Supreme Commander is successful because it was based on a previous title, Total Annihilation, which had a cult following. It didn't sell all that well, but it had a cult following. It had something to ground itself in. Take another example of an RTS, Maelstrom. Has nothing to ground itself in whatsoever. It flopped. Doesn't mean it's a bad game, but it flopped. It had nothing to ground itself in, so we need a world. Now, what worlds have we got potentially? Warhammer is a good world. Warhammer 40k is a better one. Warhammer 40k has huge potential as an MMO FPS. Not as an MMORPG. It could not be a role-playing game, really, in my honest opinion, unless you were going to follow the lines of Inquisitor. You know, you're looking at the perspective of not being a space marine and stomping around and shooting things, but as being just a regular guy, a mercenary, an operative. If anyone's read the Eisenhorn or Ravenor books by Dan Abnett, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about there. Not superhuman, not godlike avatars of the Emperor. You're looking at something a little bit more down to earth. That can work. A Necromunda MMO, for instance. You know, Necromunda is a gang-based world. It's quite similar to Neocron, which again was a big flop, but there was other reasons for that. So you've got some backing there, you know, which is why I'm putting my money on Warhammer to possibly be the WoW beta. If there's going to be a WoW beta, it's going to be that game. Because I can't see Age of Conan doing it. Age of Conan doesn't have a massively great backstory. Conan is a very odd thing to base an MMO around, in my honest opinion. The world of Hyboria is not that great, to be quite honest. The film wasn't that great either. As nostalgic as you might be about it, it wasn't really amazing. So, right, okay, now what we're going to do. The leveling system. Leveling's fine. Zones. What's good about WoW? The way that you progress from zone to zone is logical and it makes sense and it's cool, because getting into a new zone is exciting. You've got to do that in this. You can't have 50 zones that look exactly the same. Now, the Warhammer Online, yeah, it has a chance of doing that. It does have the areas. Now, if it really pushes that and makes things look great and makes things feel alive, then that's cool. Now, what does WoW fail on? The zones are pretty much static. Nothing really changes. Now, you're looking at the developers behind Dark Age of Camelot. With Realm versus Realm. Something very important. Something that is player-made content. Something that makes things meaningful. Something that makes things dynamic. WoW lacks dynamic. If WoW could have dynamic and still be as friendly to newer players, yes, then you're looking at something that might be a WoW beta. What about PvP? Again, let's go back to Realm vs. Realm. Realm vs. Realm is a significantly better system. Now, if you want to go and find out about that, go and wiki Dark Age of Camelot. Go and look at what Realm vs. Realm actually is, because it's a very interesting concept as regards to what we have now in WoW, which is meaningless world PvP, honor grinding, and arenas. Realm vs. Realm is a better system. What about RP? Now, potentially you could RP within Warhammer Online an awful lot better. It's a metagame, sure, but the lore is there, the background story is there. But you can't really RP much in WoW because everything's static, so the more dynamic, the more player-created stuff you put into it, the better. That's something that's really weak as regards to WoW. You know, crafting things is not really player-created stuff. It's static stuff that appears no matter what. You need player-created content. I'm not going to the level of Second Life here. I'm looking at housing, some customization, and player-made storylines because you've gone and done something, you know. It's like the questing in Warhammer Online is supposedly affected by what the other side does. That's understandable. That works for me. That's, in my opinion, just a little taste of what I would do if I was going to construct a WoW beta. More about that next week on Blue Please. I've run out of time. Octail will be doing a solo show after this. Sadly, Hordak has come down with the bubonic plague. That is a good... Well, it's not so much a good thing, it's more of a bad thing. Yeah, let's go with the bad side. I'm done. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Check out our website, wcradio.com. Check out our archives. Download our podcasts. Rate us on iTunes and dig us on Dig. All those many good things. This has been Blue Please. I've been Total Biscuit. Octail and Hordak coming in right after this. Stay tuned.